people's response to me who are not already at least questioning things a little bit is becoming more angry. So whereas 10 years ago, they may have rolled their eyes and been like, ah, whatever, conspiracy theorist. Now they're saying, you know, fuck you, man. How dare you say that dangerous hate speech?
I know I need to update my iOS, but I don't have enough storage. This thing is so retarded.
Whoa, sorry to alarm you there, little Johnny, but you can't say that anymore.
What? That my iPhone sucks?
No, complaining is fine. You just can't say the word retarded. Hi, I'm Peter Podesta, the Progressive Professor.
I don't get it, Professor. What's wrong with saying retarded?
I'm glad you asked, little Johnny. The word retarded is highly offensive, and we're trying to create a more tolerant, progressive society that focuses on equality and acceptance rather than hate and bigotry. Take me, for example. I used to be blinded by my own privilege, both as a cisgender male and as a white person.
Whoa, a double whammy.
But then I realized that I was the problem, and I've been carrying that guilt ever since.
Well, geez, Professor. I don't want to seem insensitive. Can you please tell me what I'm not allowed to say anymore?
I sure can, Johnny. Let's start with skin color. Here are just some of the words and phrases you can't say anymore regarding race and ethnicity.
Dark skin, Indian, Indian burn, Indian giver, Native American, Aboriginal, colored, yellow, cracker, gypsy, Alibaba, Ching Chong, Guido, limey, Caucasian, minority, ethnic, exotic, urban, refugee, foreigner, spicy Latina, black sheep, uppity, octoroon, pickaninny, hillbilly, white trash, illegal immigrant, illegal alien, Uncle Tom, as well as phrases like, I'm not a racist, I have several black friends, all lives matter, and Hollywood is run by Jews.
You know, Professor, sometimes I wish I had a vagina instead of a stupid old penis. Am I normal?
Of course you're normal, little Billy, but be careful with the V word. A lot of progressive-minded people are simply referring to it now as the front hole.
I like that.
Here's a list of words you can't say anymore regarding sexuality and gender.
Stewardess, masseuse, waiter, waitress, carpet muncher, circle jerk, trashy, bossy, sweetheart, honey, housewife, chick, stack, girly man, mama's boy, pansy, smear the queer, feminazi, cock, clit, cunt, pussy, fuckboy, and phrases like, you throw like a girl. I believe the most qualified person should get the job. There are only 2 genders.
Wow, Professor, you are so articulate. Did I say something racist?
No, Timmy, but you did use a microaggression.
Micro what?
Microaggressions are subtle discriminations that can marginalize someone's experience. Telling me I'm articulate is a compliment, but also an insult. Here's a list of just a few of the many microaggressions you can't say anymore.
It was only a joke. Don't take things so seriously. I don't see color. You have such a pretty face. When I said the same thing to other people like you, they didn't mind. You have no reason to be depressed. I never owned slaves. You should smile more.
There are also some things people say that are not only hurtful, but dangerous. Like,
9/11 was an inside job. Vaccines contain harmful ingredients. I have some questions about World War II. No one died at Sandy Hook. Pizzagate is real. Lock her up. I'm proud of my European heritage. The jury is still out on global warming. The earth is flat. I like Donald Trump.
Well, what'll happen if I say some of those words, Professor?
well, Timmy, you could get publicly shamed for using hate speech, or even worse, banned from social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So what did we learn here today, Jimmy?
Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can break your heart.
They sure can, Jimmy. They sure can.
But I feel like we might have missed a word.
What word is that, Johnny?
I don't know, something's telling me that we're missing a really bad word.
Well, nothing's coming to mind.
Well, what comes to my mind is the worst word of them all.
Welcome one and all, you're watching What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host Mark Passio, my website whatonearthishappening.com. Ladies and gentlemen, government is slavery. And here on What on Earth is Happening, we are ending slavery one mind at a time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Today is Sunday, May 26th, 2019. This is episode number 210 of What on Earth is Happening. We have a great show lined up for you here today. So I guess I'll just first ask you, how did you guys what made you conscious of what's taking place in our world, of the whole, political machinations and the whole slavery system that humanity is really living in? What kind of started to make you questioning all of that and make you conscious to what's really taking place?
Great question. Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
Question. You go ahead, because people know you.
Well, my origin story goes back to me being a kid. I mean, I've always just been a curious person, and I have always had a hard time accepting what I was being told at any point in my life. I was a really bad student in that I didn't listen very well, and I didn't believe what they were saying. And I always wanted to know what the other, perspective was on any situation.
All right, folks, here we go. We're going to play Chemtrails from Joy Camp.
Oh, I know this song. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Look, that long cloud, it looks like a whisker.
Oh yeah, well, like a mustache, kind of.
Ooh.
Like a long mustache.
Like a really long mustache. I like
long white mustache.
Oh, look over there. It looks
Where?
like a tic-tac-toe board. I'll be
Oh,
the X.
I'll be O's then.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. That looks like a toothpaste. Like that little plane right there is the holder, and then that long
That's the
streak
toothpaste?
is the toothpaste.
Guys, it's chemtrails. You guys are looking at chemtrails. Those aren't real clouds.
Oh, it's just such a nice day.
It'd be better if there weren't chemtrails. We have a bright blue sky. Instead, we get this milky white haze raining down on us. You guys don't understand the severity of the situation. These chemtrails are poisoning us with heavy metals. And it sprinkles down on us, we breathe it in, it's on our soil, it's in the grass. We then become conductors because we have all this metal in our body, you see? And they're turning us ultimately into robots. We're gonna be robots. That's the future. Because nobody wants to talk about this.
Oh, hey, look over there. It's Pinocchio's nose. It's growing. He's telling lies.
Is he telling the truth or is he telling a lie? He's the conspiracy guy.
Great stuff. I mean, that's one of the, I think, classic conspiracy guy sketches, and I think it pretty much says it all. It's like, the public ignoring things and you calling attention to it in a comedic way, trying to let people know, yes, this is going on. This is something that we should be aware of, but you're having fun doing it, and it's brilliantly put together. You just came back from the AV conference out in England.
Alternative View 10 in England.
Were they covering any geoengineering out there?
Oh yeah, for sure. In fact, I think, most of the presentations at least touched on it.
Yeah, geoengineering.
5G was probably the biggest, the topic that was through most of the speeches.
So what was the community like out there in England, like the attendees? What's the whole...
English.
Yeah.
They make the joke every year that they're Jerry activists because it's an older crowd. It's people who have lived through it and are looking back going, oh, wow, I made all the wrong decisions. I trusted all the wrong people. And what can I do now?
Yeah, but similar to the crowd that you'd find at most of these conferences. I mean, I find that the best people are drawn to these. So it's very, and what's the irony is that these are the same people that the media is teaching people who watch the media to be afraid of. But they're always the sweetest, most generous, open-hearted, open-minded, thoughtful people. And this conference is certainly no exception.
Yeah, you and I first met at Anarchapulco 2018 out by the pool at one of the pool parties there. And, we both recognized that we were mutual fans of each other's work, which was really great to see. So I want to just go back briefly to the AV conference. Just the people in England, what is their general attitude about the loss of freedom, particularly in Europe, and the inroads into totalitarianism there, especially when it comes to free speech that the EU has made and forced upon them?
Well,
they're aware of it.
There was a lot of jokes about Brexit there because they voted to leave, and they're still a part of it, and they're like doing the revote. So they're just making this joke. They're making lots of jokes about how they can't seem to, no matter what the people say, the government won't allow it to happen.
And I don't know if everybody's already aware of this, but it was new to my radar. But what they had a speaker talking about Brexit. Fine, they voted that Britain would be out of the EU, but there's this EU defense
force,
something like that. They were very specific that it wasn't the EU army. That when people call it the EU army, these politicians can say, no, we're not part of the EU army. But there's an EU defense force that's a different thing that Britain is very much at the heart of. That's a coalition and a very militarized force that is likely
against the people.
Yeah, ready to turn against the people, and they're showing up against the Yellow Vests in Paris, and so that's very much a component of what's taking over in Europe.
That was probably one of the most compelling presentations. They flew in a French lawyer who's a part of the Yellow Vest movement in Paris, and she gave a presentation, and she showed pictures from what's going on there, and it was terrifying. I mean, obviously, the media's, if they're reporting on it at all, they're lying about what they're showing. They're showing looters and violence, and it's not. It's a peaceful protest. They're shooting people's eyes out in Paris. Literally shooting their eyes out. They have these guns that shoot these rubber bullets, and they're aiming at their faces. And she showed one picture after another. I mean, probably
young people,
half a dozen at least,
early 20-year-olds,
who are getting their eyeballs shot out.
Without a doubt. Rubber bullets are no joke. I mean, they call them less lethal munitions, but you can still actually be killed by them if they're fired at close enough range, and you can most certainly be blinded by them.
And and you show these guys too, the soldiers or the cops. They're wearing like Adidas jackets and gas masks. They're not wearing any sort of uniform. They're wearing jeans and T-shirts, and you're like, who are these guys?
This is really interesting. There's local police, and then alongside them are these street clothes with bulletproof vests and machine guns. Alongside them, people are saying those guys don't speak French. They're hearing them with Eastern European accents, and they're part of this potentially defense force that's not.
Yeah. They're a small mercenary army is what they really are, brought in probably from some former Eastern Bloc nation. Yeah.
We don't find, I've been traveling a lot for the last 11 years, and I've never come across anyone who was mad or treated me poorly because I was American. I don't know if that's a misconception or if I'm sure people experience that to an extent sometimes, but I've never had an issue because when I first started traveling internationally, when I was in graduate school, I was a little nervous. I was even instructed to tell people I was from Canada, but I've never really been met with any, animosity because I was American. I don't know though. I think that just by going to the cities, like going to Dublin, Ireland, and we were in London last year, and we spent some time in Australia earlier this year, and there is the same energy permeating through all these places. So there's this, global, how do you even say it? Like I guess a globalized feel, homogenized would be a good way to put it. Homogenized, cultureless, materialistic world that's everywhere that most people are buying into, and their attitudes are fine in one-on-one interactions, but there's definitely an ignorance that's abundant.
Yeah, and it seems universal that the number of things people are being told to be afraid of is on the rise, and the amount of, interference and protection that's needed because of that is on the rise, and that unfortunately is everywhere we've been, where there's more and more control permeating the culture, and more people just saying it's good, we're thankful because it's so dangerous out there.
I think that the universe rewards us for courage and boldness, and that's what a lot of people a lot more people, I think, need to step into that consciousness dynamic, and they will see the results when they do it in their lives. When you're putting yourself out there, when you're doing the right thing, when you're being creative, when you're even taking chances, but they're chances that are calculated for the right reasons, the universe is going to respond to that and support you in a very powerful and positive direction.
That's so
Absolutely.
true.
And that's something I wish I could instruct people on and tell them, like, this is, so many people are afraid to really accept what, how dark the rabbit hole can be and how dark these truths are, and that the people in power are as bad as they are. But once you are willing enough to stare it down and not just be blindfolded about reality, you become liberated. It's my life is absolutely only improved since I stepped onto this path and really dedicated myself to helping people and to contributing in a positive way, and contributing in a way that wasn't just self-serving.
That's right. And, when it comes to creativity, I think that's another expression that gets the universe to come to your support and even defense. It's like we are all here to be creative individuals. That's the underlying power of the universe itself, is the power to create something new, to put something out there for others to take into themselves that can be a powerful transformer in their own personal lives. I mean, this is what I talk about all the time, folks. There's no one way to do the great work. It's whatever way that you are comfortable with. It's whatever way that you have the talent to put it forward. And you could do it in a creative way. You could do it with writing, you could do it with allegorical stories, you could do it with singing, you could do it with music, artwork, etc. And then Benny does with poetry and comedy. I mean, you can see this is a total integrative creative process, and it goes hand in hand with the knowledge and information that people learn, and then you just take that and then you roll it into a different creative expression and give it a new outlet for people. And that's how a lot of people learn, because they learn through different mediums of expression. And some people will do really well learning through a podcast, or some people will do really well reading a book, some will do really well watching a documentary video, and some will learn very well listening to a song or hearing a poem or watching a comedy sketch. It'll reach people at a different fundamental level of their subconscious and conscious mind. So that's why I keep telling people, find what your creative expression is and then get involved in doing it and put this work out there for other people. Don't wait, just find what you're good at and go ahead and don't wait for orders from headquarters. Just
like you just said, creativity is powerful, and I'm always encouraging people to explore their creative potential in truth telling, because you can take a big idea and distill it down to something palatable, to its essence, in a way that sometimes you can't unless you do it in a creative way. So
your work sort of almost reminds me of conscious hip hop and rap artists who say so much with so few words. You pack so much informational content in a small amount of verse. I think that's like an art form in and of itself to be able to do that.
Thanks. Yeah, I like it. It's really therapeutic for me, because it forces me again, to take a big topic, say like racism, and say, how do I consolidate all these sort of chaotic thoughts I have about racism into something that's cohesive, that is shareable enough that someone will hear it and understand where I'm coming from and get them to think about it a little more deeply. So it forces me to be disciplined and also, articulate.
All right. And see, this is what I've been trying to subtly encourage people to do. It's because I'm the kind of straight ahead, I'm just going to give you the information as it is, and that's going to be for the strongest among us to take in. And I recognize fully that not everybody is going to be like that. There are going to be people that will not be able to take the truth as I personally deliver it to people. But what I think my goal has always been is not to reach every single individual. I know no one person's going to be able to do that. I am trying to reach the people out there who are part of or most of the way there, and inspire them to then become teachers in their own way through their own unique expressive outlet. And that's what I love seeing. What you guys are doing it in a completely different way than how someone like myself does it. Yet, as you see, it will reach people that most certainly you would not be able to, hand a Mark Passio flash drive or DVD and say, here, watch this. They would probably melt to the ground, hearing some of the things that I have to say. But you guys would be able to bring it to them in a slightly different way that will be able to reach them where they're at. Yeah, I was saying, regarding coming out publicly and talking about the things that you do in your performance art, has there been any tension or blowback with family and or friends?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. With family in particular, it's interesting. Something else I was going to comment on earlier regarding the conspiracy guy chemtrails video. What's interesting for us, looking back on these conspiracy guys videos over the years, I feel like we kind of, without trying, without meaning to, we encapsulated where people were at as far as the reactions to conspiracy theorists are. And in that one, the guys just tune me out. They just pretend like I'm not even there. They just wait till I'm done, and then they keep going. And if you watch the conspiracy guy videos, by the time we get to our false flags one from about a year ago, the guys are so angry at what I'm saying, they kick me out of the house. They say, "Get out of here." They're so mad because I'm challenging their belief system, their BS. And I feel like that's what's happened. So in my personal life, while I feel like I'm only getting better as a person as I continue to evolve and grow and get older, people's response to me who are not already at least questioning things a little bit is becoming more angry. So whereas 10 years ago, they may have rolled their eyes and be like, oh, whatever, conspiracy theorist. Now they're saying, fuck you, man. How dare you say that dangerous hate speech? And I've definitely had to deal with some of that in my own family. I mean, I have a niece who refuses to talk to me. There's actually a poem that I sent to you that we might be able to play at some point. It's called San Francisco Pride, and she identifies so fully with this LGBTQ movement that she thinks I'm now just some homophobic, white supremacist, alt-right Nazi spreading dangerous conspiracy theories and hate speech, that she won't talk to me. And this is someone I've known since she was born. I mean, I held her when she was a baby, and I've been nothing but supportive and encouraging her entire life, and paid for field trips, and I've just been a good uncle. And because of what I'm speaking out about, and because I'm not a liberal, because I'm not on the left, this is very important, because I'm not progressive, I'm the enemy. And she won't talk to me. And my sister is having a hard time talking to me. My sister keeps telling me I need to apologize to her. I was like, I don't have anything to apologize for. I mean,
all you were really talking about in that video was the kind of conformity and mass materialism that was taking place at the Pride event that you attended. It wasn't like you were attacking their lifestyle or their lifestyle choices in any way whatsoever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, in case you couldn't tell, I'm from America, and last year I went to the San Francisco Pride Parade with my beautiful girlfriend, Sonia, and my best friend in the entire world, who is gay. And it was perhaps the most Orwellian experience of my life. I was astounded by what I experienced there. And I wrote a poem about it. This is my experience. San Francisco Pride, abide, or else. Celebrate diversity in advertising. Google, PayPal, Microsoft, eBay, Apple, Gap, T-Mobile, Safeway, Amazon, Facebook, AT&T, Starbucks, McDonald's, and PG&E. Lesbian, bisexual, gay, trans, and queer, sponsored by Uber and Michelob Beer. Hashtag equality, hashtag resist, with a Wells Fargo rainbow to slap on your wrist. Meanwhile, beneath the shadowy buildings of bankers' greed, amidst the stale, piss-soaked air, on the streets of a flattened piece of paved earth, people are sleeping and starving and crying and dying. Lots and lots and more. And it's illegal for you to feed them. And it's illegal for them to scavenge. And the rest of the restaurant food and food-like substance is thrown away in plastic bags to rot forever, out of sight, out of mind, in a land far, far away. Because life ain't free, pre-5G. Except for flu shots, of course, available now at CVS, a proud advocate of pride. Freedom won't be achieved with the support of Levi's jeans or Macy's or Pete's coffee. Real revolution is evolution of the mind, and it will not be televised or funded by Smirnoff or endorsed by BMW. Hashtag resist government. Hashtag resist corporations. Hashtag resist hashtags. And for God's sake, please stop arguing over who has it worse. It's bad and it's hard for everyone. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a straight, white, cisgender male. I'm probably missing the point.
Brilliant. You know, I mean, that's just like brilliantly done. And you're saying so much in there about like the type of conformity and the type of really censorship of expression that goes on within that community, and how they're embracing the corporatism and materialism and advertising schemes. But in no way are you ever attacking the lifestyle of the whole LGBT community. It's just, you're talking about the type of way that the event was arranged and how it was Orwellian in the way it was set up. So I think anybody listening can definitely tell that, as long as they're not, so rooted in this very, leftist censorship mindset. So, I think that comes through clear in the video, and the video is very powerfully done.
I appreciate that. Thanks. And yeah, I mean, that's one of the problems we're all coming up against, I think, is people who are that adamant about these leftist ideas, they can't hear what you're saying. They can't hear logic. They can't hear objectivity. And then if you approach something neutrally without if you approach something neutrally, objectively, they think you lack compassion. So it's all this emotionally driven nonsense. It's actually being fed to them to buy into. But yeah, I mean, it's been really frustrating. And that, we went to that Pride event, and it was really disheartening as well, because you see these people who do want a better world, and it's just completely been hijacked and commandeered and redirected. And when you see Starbucks and Chase Bank with rainbow filters over their logos, that's not a revolution. That's not that's not grassroots, like people standing up against something. That's corporately sponsored. Yeah,
they're trying to just sell to that market. That's all. It's targeting a market demographic. That's all it is.
They're not celebrating anything. That was my biggest problem with it. Didn't feel like it was a celebration of anything. It was just debauchery. I mean, it was people drinking and doing drugs in the streets, and peeing in the streets and running around naked and showing off their transgender scars. And it was and then they corralled everybody into this one section, like this one fenced off area, so everyone was just like in a cage, running around naked and drinking. And I'm like, this is not freedom. This is debauchery. This is sort of lightly organized chaos. And yeah, it was just crazy. It was a totally crazy experience. And so I wrote that poem about it, and now my niece won't talk to me.
I think that a lot of people in any type of minority communities don't really understand equality under natural law. They sort of want equality in the sense of uniformity, instead of an understanding that we all have the same rights and we should all respect each other's natural, innate human rights. That's what's lacking in that understanding of equality under natural law. It's what's lacking in a lot of alternative communities, unfortunately.
Yeah, agreed. And there's just so much victimhood going on, and blame. Everyone's to blame for everyone's problems, and there's no empowerment. There's no, like, I want people to be empowered and feel like they can, if you face adversity, you can move through it, and you can let that be a seed towards growth, and not just something that keeps you from ever progressing in life. And it's quite a predicament we're in.
Yeah, I
and
like.
There's so much.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sonia.
I was thinking that what I've been noticing a lot lately is the word diversity. People are such champions of diversity as long as it doesn't mean diversity of political thought. You better not be politically different. Or diversity, it doesn't include being a white person. More than ever, I'm seeing people say, like, oh, it's not diverse here in Idaho, say, and just because there's primarily white people. But you don't travel to India and get mad that there's not a white person making your burger. But if you're in Idaho and you go to an Indian restaurant and it's a white person making your Indian food, it's not diverse here. But white is, Irish is an ethnicity and German is an ethnicity, and people, their need for diversity doesn't include things that are white or Christian or conservative, and that's ironic.
I mean, that's why I like how you left it off in that poetry, Benny, where you're saying, well, what do I know? I'm just a white cisgendered male. It's like the idea that, like, we cannot have an opinion because, or can't have our views heard because we're, like, straight and white. It's like, this shouldn't exclude anybody. Speaking out, having an opinion, or even just putting the truth out there should not exclude any racial group. It should not exclude any sexual orientation, and even political orientation. Like, people need to be able to speak and express themselves. I think that's what's so dangerous about the current climate of censorship that is going on throughout the world. Really bad. It has gotten very bad in Europe, and that level of type of censorship of freedom of speech is starting to raise its head here in America, and it's really being championed by the tech giants and the leftist community, and it's a very dangerous slope that we're treading down. What do you guys think about what's going on with the whole attitude and the whole era of censorship that's coming about in America, and especially when it comes to big tech?
Well, I mean, I have multiple thoughts on it. On one hand, it's horrible, and it's, they're silencing anybody who has a contradictory, or not even contradictory, but just a different perspective on something. But at the same time, I feel like the fact that they have to resort to those measures is a good sign that there's a major threat against their narrative. So it's a mixed bag. So we are dealing with just horrible censorship, but it's showing that I think there's way too many people out there speaking up, or at least having, they're breaking free of the programming more and more all the time, and they're trying to stop that as much as they can.
It's genius, though, because people aren't being exposed to that there are people having alternative perspectives, and so they're getting this mainstream, narrative of whatever the issue is, if it's vaccinations, for example, and even though they're on Facebook all day and they see articles stream by and they watch their late night shows and get on YouTube, things are not being suggested, or, memes aren't appearing that hold an alternate view. And so it's otherwise good-hearted people who, when you're the first person to say, oh, actually, vaccines have not been appropriately safety tested and I would never trust a vaccine in my own child, you sound like you're crazy, when really maybe this person has, maybe 60% of the people in their lives feel that way, but they're not being exposed to it. So the censorship is genius and awful. It's a lot to be up against, I think.
And where are all the women saying, my body, my choice about vaccinations?
That's right. Or even putting any kind of substance into their body that they so choose. Like, they're so on the side of government and whatever laws want to be constructed in any given geographic area. Okay, I was saying the people who say "my body, my choice," they don't extend that to using whatever substance you want to experiment with your own consciousness. They'll agree with government when it comes to the prohibition of, certain substances, but then in the other hand, they'll support, the right to abort, children in the womb. It's like, and like you said, they want to force vaccination upon people. Like, well, how is that respecting someone's personal sovereignty of their own body? It's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There's so many contradictions in the logic, on the left. That's maddening.
Yeah.
It's it's working instead of from first principles about self-ownership. It's working from a simple emotionally driven state that doesn't get down to philosophical principles and doesn't get down to the basic building blocks of the difference between right and wrong behavior. They never take the thought process down to that fundamental level of first principles. That's what I find with people who argue only from an emotional point of view, and that's what we have to kind of continuously try to bring it back to, even if we can do it from a Socratic method perspective of asking questions of them about what they even think, and then show them through a questioning method the contradictions that are inherent in their own thought process. That could go a long way to helping them to see that they're not really congruent in the ways that they think and then behave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think first principles was a concept new to me approaching 30. We don't have any sort of, knowledge of the trivium in school. But once you find it, it is really empowering. But I think people sense that if they follow your logic sometimes, if you're drawing them out through questioning, they sense that it's a trap. It's not, but that they might end up going where you hope they'll go, and that they'll lose the group. They know that all of their news anchors and late night shows and magazines and newspapers that they consume and all their friends have this perspective on any one thing, abortion, vaccinations. And if they concede to your points and say, gosh, I might be feeling my mind change on this, that they're going to lose the support of the group, and now the responsibility comes to them. Right. That they're going to have to face the entire crowd and say, I've changed my mind and I no longer agree with you. And I think they're on a human level of liking to be connected and liking to be liked and accepted. That's too much for a lot of people to face.
Yeah, they don't want to succumb to the pressure of having to acknowledge that they perhaps were wrong, and then telling the rest of their, group dynamics, members that they're involved with, that they are wrong as well. They don't want to have that that butting of heads. They don't want that tension or that conflict or that rocking the boat in their own interpersonal community. And I think that goes hand in hand with the courage to stand up and tell the truth, even if you're in a minority of one. And it's a rare thing. It's something that not a lot of people want to dedicate their lives to, because it doesn't have to, but it can alienate you from other people, especially if you've surrounded yourself with people who are engaged in the illusion, perhaps to a deep extent. Then it will force people to ask, well, where will that leave me in my social dynamic if I go in the other direction?
Yep.
Exactly.
And I relate to that because I feel like for Benny, he's been questioning, and based on his questioning, his tribe formed early on. He found his best friends as a result of waking up and asking questions. These guys came along, and I was in a different boat. That everyone I know, even still, thinks this kind of party line, because I studied journalism and I loved reading magazines and listening to pop music, and I was in. And so for me, it was that.
And you were in Hollywood for a while, right? So
which is like the epicenter.
Yeah, and Hollywood. I was born in Hollywood.
You were
to actor parents, so I've been inundated with show business my whole life. There's no like, I don't know. I never got starstruck as a result. So I was growing up in Los Angeles. It was a natural fit for me as a career, because I was like, oh, everyone else around me is doing it. I'll just do this. And I really fell in love with it. I fell in love with acting, and it actually still kind of pisses me off that I couldn't pursue that career because it is so tainted. You know, I loved what I'm doing with poetry and everything's working out fantastically and perfectly. But, you know, I did want to be a professional actor. I wanted to make movies and, you know, tell stories. And I couldn't do that because the industry is so corrupt to its core, and it's such a pillar of propaganda and mind control that I couldn't participate in that, and it pisses me off.
Yeah.
That's something that's so fun and has such power and storytelling. I mean, we're people that love stories and storytelling, and I couldn't participate in it because I single-handedly can't change that industry, and I had to walk away. And it bothers me that it's, you know, that was an uncomfortable truth for me, and that was one of the last ones I really had to face and be like, okay, I have to accept that Hollywood is as dark as people are suggesting, and it is devoid of a heart at its core, and I can't do this thing that's been my dream my whole life. And, you know, again, everything's great, but still, it sucks. You know, I had to shatter that paradigm, and it's because it's evil, and it sucks.
So few have the strength to do that because of the type of, you know, glamorous lifestyle that could lead to, the monetary compensation it can lead to. That's why a lot of people in Hollywood won't break out of that trance and won't speak the truth.
Frantic energy to have high status. There's all this it's so much competition in Hollywood, and very few people are actually satisfied with what they have. I mean, even people who are really successful, because I think we both got to spend some time around people who were successful in Hollywood, and they were always wanting more. You know, they were. It's like that. It's like when you see the guy who played Kramer on Seinfeld have his meltdown, whatever it was, Laugh Factory, and, you know, call the black guy in the audience some pretty bad words.
Right.
He's having a meltdown because he's not he's not in favor anymore. He was on Seinfeld, and that ship sailed, and instead of taking those millions and millions of dollars and, you know, seeing the entire world, what was important to him was relevancy, making sure that he was still popular. And so you see him having this meltdown in some comedy club in LA, and it's really pathetic because he's at the end of his rope. He's desperate because he wants that fame still. And you see that everywhere. That's why all the women get plastic surgery. I mean, it's a joke. So you see that firsthand, you know, in spades everywhere. Because I again, the irony of my niece being mad at me for that poem earlier. I have a lot of gay friends, and I've heard stories about what goes on at some of these gay bars and elsewhere in Hollywood, nightclubs and stuff. And I think that people would be surprised to know how many famous people are actually participating in some really gay stuff.
Sure. I mean,
names
you know,
of note.
I agree with you that more of the people in Hollywood are doing it for the status and the fame and the money, and don't really know the agenda that lies behind some of the things that are laid out for them to do and to participate in. That is often directed by the higher ups in the industry, and the people who are out there just seeking the fame and fortune will go along with whatever their agents or the people who are higher up in positions of power at levels much higher than them in the hierarchy that operates there than they are tell them to do. So it's a very much a hierarchy and compartmentalization, as you would find in the military and law enforcement, etc. And the people who are low down on the totem pole, who are just seeking fame and wealth, will just sell themselves out for that paycheck and do whatever they're told to do to get fame and status. And they don't even care or ask questions in many cases about what the potential implications or what the real agenda behind what they're being asked to do is.
Shut costume party, you know, it's fun and weird, and it's sexy Hollywood.
And I have talked to people who have been to some of those.
Yeah.
But again, but in the same way that they didn't know what they didn't see anything that was other than like sexual behavior that was you know, satanic, I guess.
Right.
But what was I just going to say about that?
Sorry, compartmentalization and if you're
commercials. Yeah, I mean, this is so Sonia and I made our money as commercial actors in Los Angeles, and you know, I thought that was it was pretty insulting coming out of graduate school and having, you know, I had a Master of Fine Arts degree in acting, and I'd been doing Shakespeare and Moliere, and then I went to Hollywood, and they're like, all right, that doesn't matter, you know, can you smile for the camera and, you know, sell this cheeseburger, and we'll give you $10,000 kind of thing. And I was like, what? That's not in line with who I am. But I ended up doing it because you do need to make money in LA, and commercials are a good way to make money. But it's at a price. And especially as Joy Camp started to grow, I was really at odds with myself, because I was like, this is absolutely, in conflict with my integrity. And while it did pay well when you can get the work, because it's highly competitive, but when you get the work, it pays well, but it's at a cost. And we fought, and it also, but not having a backup plan. So that was like my life. I was making money doing commercials, making Joy Camp videos, and then found myself going, well, if I leave the commercials, what am I going to do? I don't have a income source, and being in the truth business doesn't really pay that well. So, again, a leap of faith. We had to take a leap of faith, but it's hard. They ensnare actors who are talented. I mean, there's so much talent in that city, but only this much of them actually work in like the movies and in series regulars on TV shows, and everybody else is just clamoring for whatever they can get. So they're basically getting everyone to exploit themselves to sell products to people that they don't need, that not only do they not need them, but most of the time are actually really harmful to their mental health or physical health.
That's right. Or the company is harmful to the world at large.
So we're very happy to be out of that business.
That's good that you guys went with that leap of faith and had developed that courage to go your own way, and that's like what you said, since the majority of these corporations are just selling these huge amounts of products and services that people don't really need, and if not are outright harmful to them. That's where the majority of these jobs, these lower end jobs, go to actors like that, and that's where the 95 or greater percent are taking jobs just to survive.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. I mean, my knee is a little sore from jogging yesterday, which makes me wonder if jogging is bad. Am I doing permanent damage to my knee by running on it? Is cardio in general bad? Does it speed up the aging process? Because I read this article on Facebook that says it does. But it doesn't matter anyway, because I'm going to keep doing it because I need to stay in shape. I want to look good. I'm not getting any younger. I'm 32. I'm single. I'm lonely. And I want to attract a partner. Or partners, I guess, because I honestly don't know if human beings by nature are monogamous or polyamorous. Whatever. I'm hanging in there. I'm living the dream. Actually, in the process of losing my dreams. I'm avoiding inevitable death one day at a time. I'm collecting memories. I'm feeling nostalgic. I'm looking forward. I'm trying to live in the moment. I'm laughing when I can. I'm simultaneously enjoying and hating my daily routines. I woke up this morning feeling pretty groggy because I had one too many beers last night. I'm trying really hard not to beat myself up over that decision. No regrets. But I am feeling restless and confused sometimes, and antsy and freaked out and happy and excited and discouraged with where my life is at, and grateful at the same time. And I'm experiencing my parents getting older, and friends of mine from throughout my life are having babies, which makes me wonder if I want to have babies. And I'm contemplating purpose in life and the life path and desperately wanting to change the world but not knowing what to do. I'm asking why things are the way they are. How do we get here? Where are we going? Is the apocalypse imminent? Are we already in the apocalypse? Is this the beginning of a golden age? What is the deal with synchronicity? What happens when we die? Are there ghosts? Oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm chilling. I'm just chilling. Observing a world run by lunatics, where there's never-ending war and never-ending debt, where there's empty houses and homeless people, where obesity and starvation live side by side, where corporations donate money to cancer research when the chemicals in their products are most likely what's causing the cancer, where financial wealth, material gain, and fame are considered success. Frankly, I'm feeling pretty helpless because I'm too busy paying off my student loans and working 2 jobs to keep a roof over my head and food on my plate and gas in my tank to focus on any tangible solutions that affect anybody but myself. But I'm good.
It's good.
Cool.
Sometimes I wonder if my posts are reaching anybody because I'm like, I'm not getting any likes.
I feel like Facebook is like controlling what I'm posting, you know.
Well, I have over 2,000 followers on Instagram.
That's it?
I got 300.
That's how many likes I got on my last photo.
Huh.
Classic. So, folks, this is what you can expect from Joy Camp. Do check them out at joycampwebsite.com and check out their YouTube channel. I'm going to go back to Benny in 1 second.
Feeling angry? Tired of bigotry and racism? Are you experiencing spontaneous bouts of complaining? Do you find yourself triggered by just about anything? Then you may be suffering from ITS, Irritable Trump Syndrome.
Also known as Trumproids.
ITS is an infection of the mind caused by the rapid spread of bullshit propaganda and fear. As ITS attacks your consciousness, it calcifies the pineal gland, inhibiting critical thinking and the ability to receive information that challenges a pre-existing programmed paradigm. Other symptoms may include self-righteousness, blame, passive aggression, validation through social media, circular argument, depression, arrogance, stubbornness, herd mentality, attacking those who do not agree with you, standing in solidarity, constipation, stress, statism, extreme cognitive dissonance, excuses to drink, meanness, smugness, bullying, denial, white guilt, hate, thinking you're smarter than everyone, and in some extreme cases, Trump worship. In the last few months, ITS has gone viral and it's memeing hard. It seems to be infecting everybody. Well, we're here to tell you there's hope. The cure to ITS is easier than you think. First, turn off your television and sign out of Facebook. Next, go outside. You remember outside, right? Say hi to your neighbor and listen to what he has to say. Watch out though, his kindness may surprise you. Great! Now that you've calmed the down a bit, go ahead and ask yourself some bigger questions like, what is my purpose? How can I grow and be myself to the fullest of my potential? Why does the government infringe on my basic human rights? Why is there war? Why do I have to pay to be alive? How can I leave this world a better place than how I found it? What can I do to help? By reducing your ITS inflammation, you can help reduce flare-ups in others.
When my Trumproids were raging, I thought the swelling would never go down. But then I remembered that I'm the cure, and the answers I seek are within. I guess you could say I trumped my roids.
But whatever you do, don't consult your doctor about ITS. This message is brought to you by the universe, Great Spirit, and Source Energy, in conjunction with Mother Nature, Earth, and all those who came before you who dared to step away from the herd and stayed woke. Irritable Trump Syndrome. Just get over it already. Subscribe to Joy Camp, support us on Patreon, and watch more Joy Camp by visiting our YouTube channel. Be careful though, our videos may surprise you.
Great stuff.
You could get publicly shamed for using hate speech, or even worse, banned from social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So what did we learn here today, Jimmy?
Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can break your heart.
They sure can, Jimmy. They sure can.
But I feel like we might have missed a word.
What word is that, Johnny?
I don't know. Something's telling me that we're missing a really bad word.
Well, nothing's coming to mind.
Well, what comes to my mind is the worst word of them all.
Absolutely nothing wrong with any of those words in and of themselves. They're only words. It's the context that counts. It's the user. It's the intention behind the words that makes them good or bad. The words are completely neutral. The words are innocent. I get tired of people talking about bad words and bad language. Bullshit. It's the context that makes them good or bad.
Absolutely brilliant. And, you know, putting George Carlin at the end there, that's, you know, that's phenomenal because, you know, he's talking about the context of things, this is like kind of what I talk about when it comes to occult knowledge. People thinking it's bad, thinking symbolisms inherently in and of themselves are bad. It's the context, it's the way it's used, it's who's using it and for what reason. So I love that you interjected that in there, and that was like an incredibly funny one, and that's one that that'll really burn the whole leftist censors to the ground, because you included every single denomination and everybody in there. They won't know what to make of that. And I like how you injected the idea of censorship, and then even both of you guys turned aside and paused there for a moment of silence. Have you been censored in any way on social media or YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. We noticed the difference in just everything about our channel. A few years ago, we used to have a video called, I don't know if you've probably seen some of our award show videos we have. And we had one that was called the Illuminati Puppet of the Year, which was a Grammy video. And it was far and away our most popular video in view count.
Yeah, that was a great one.
It was trending and going viral. And we were up to about, 300,000 views or so. And then YouTube took it down, saying we were violating copyright, etc. And then shortly after that, they took down one of our Oscar videos for, again, copyright stuff. Even though we're protected under fair use and parody law, they didn't care. And ever since then, we've just noticed that things on the channel have been strange. Now, granted, we're not ones to put videos up every single day, so we've never really, tried to build momentum in that way. But just little things like that video, I'm Good. We have a screenshot of that video at 99,000 views within maybe 2 days of putting it online when we put it up a couple years ago. And then the next morning it dropped all the way down to 30,000 views. So there's some tampering going on. Every time I go speak at a conference,
like overnight the view count dropped by that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely deliberate.
Yeah, and so we get people who are dropped as subscribers all the time. I have people coming up to me constantly saying they don't get they don't get notifications in their feed about us, that they have been unsubbed to the channel. And recently we had a video called Stand Up to Cancer Causes, which I filmed at Anarchapulco a few years ago, and people in it like Luke Gradowski and James Corbett and a lot of other people. And the whole point of the video is to tell people like what causes cancer and how to avoid these things in order to maybe not get cancer. And so it's an empowering video, and basically in the video we say sit down and do your own, don't stand up to cancer by giving away your money. Sit down and do your own research. And that video got taken down from YouTube and Facebook in the same day for, quote, inappropriate content. So we've definitely felt the backlash somewhat. I mean, we're glad that our channel hasn't been taken down, but we feel like it's been compromised for a couple of years, and they've definitely just blatantly taken videos down for sure. So we feel it.
The target of censorship myself so far. I talked about it a little bit last week. I really don't think they even know what to make of my material and don't want to really call any attention to it. So, hopefully that'll continue. But, who knows where this will go, how bad this will get in the future. But I think it's definitely a slippery slope that we're on regarding it. And I think more people have to speak out against it, because these tech companies, they think they're God, and they think they can literally prescribe what thoughts people are allowed to have. That's how bad it's gotten.
Exactly. And so I've been telling Sonia this all the time, but I have a lot of, I subscribe to a lot of other channels on YouTube. So my feed is primarily alternative-based stuff, but they always try to recommend Late Night with Seth Meyers, Jimmy Kimmel,
oh my God,
CNN, and Stephen Colbert all the time, every day. I get these in my feed, like, recommended. These are recommended viewing. I've never once clicked on a Seth Meyers video, yet every day, there it is, recommended for me to watch. So now I've just started reporting them every time they do it. I click a little report button and report it for either being spam or for being misleading or abusive content. And every time, I'm in spite of that, they're still putting them on my feed. So
that's the new algorithm. They'll decide what
exactly.
They recommend for you to watch. Trying to.
So I'm reporting CNN and Seth Meyers daily for spamming me their videos.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we're up against, you know. It's like more people have to understand what's taking place and be like righteously angry about it and get enraged about it, like, because this is something that people should be angry about. You know, how dare companies try to prescribe opinions and thoughts to people like that, you know, that they want them to have, you know, and what they want them to watch instead of what people's actual related interests are, you know. So they'll, and again, I may not agree with people of certain political persuasions or even worldviews. Like, you know, I don't particularly think that the flat earth community is on to the truth regarding, you know, what they believe, but they should have a right to say it. I don't want anybody censored. They have freedom of speech to say what they want, even if I feel that they are not correct. So, but they should be allowed to say it. You know, I don't particularly want that infesting groups with my name on it, because then it'll give people the impression that I believe that, you know. So I want to try to, you know, have the places that are my areas of the internet for my content, and that's my right. That's like, you know, what you want in your home is what it's your aesthetic, and that's what you want in there, and nobody else can just throw things in your house that they want in there, you know. So it's like we should all have our own little corners of the internet, build them up like we would build a physical space up that is our own space, and you know, other people shouldn't intrude in there, but if they're invited in, come in respectfully, have discussion, have debate, etc., you know. But everybody should be allowed to speak and present their thoughts and have their own unique outlet for the expression of their consciousness and their ideas. You know, that's what freedom of speech is all about, and we have to be champions of it and really speak out against this absolutely radical censorship that's going on, and make sure that it doesn't get any worse than it already has gotten.
Exactly. And they're trying to convince people that hate speech is not free speech.
And ironically, though, the limit to what you can say are direct calls for violence, you know, understandably so. And yet, more and more, the left is calling people to stand up to people in MAGA hats, for example, with violence, is show them that what they believe is wrong and that we won't stand for, you know, Nazi takeover and punch them in the face. These calls for violence on mainstream CBS television shows, and that's allowed all of a sudden.
And they don't get flagged on social media. There's a double standard there, you know, which is very clear that it's a politically driven agenda. And in order to weaken society in the deepest way possible, they want to androgynize people, because of people who are more uniform in a sense of not having unique characteristics of their own, and even forming a bond between the sexes, is going to play into the divide and conquer agenda and make people actually easier to control. This is something that if you want to really look into on a deeper level, you should try to find online and read some of the works of the Whitehall Church of Satan. It's an organization that I was briefly involved with and had some affiliates with when I was involved in Satanism in my past. Whitehall is a small town outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania, and there's writings of this organization directly related with converting society to an androgynous path. So it's something that definitely certain factions of the dark occult have within their tool set, and it's part of their agenda. No question about it in my mind whatsoever. So I just wanted to chime in with that aspect of what Essence of Anarchy was talking about.
Yeah, interesting. I'll check that out.
Sure. Do you guys have anything to conclude about that? Essence of Anarchy, thank you for the call.
I have lots of thoughts about all that.
Sure.
But I won't go into detail. But one thing that I think is, I feel like the blurred lines of gender now, the fact that they're trying to convince us that there's more than two genders, is the real world equivalent of 2 + 2 = 5 from 1984. They're trying to change something that is a fact and make us, so that further discombobulates us, so that our sense of reality is no longer rooted in truth. It's the real life that this idea that there's more than two genders is the direct in our world example of 2 + 2 = 5.
It's definitely that type of obfuscation that is taking place, and they want people to believe that reality is whatever the people who push the official mainstream narrative say that it is. That's where they want to get people's minds. That's how weak minded of a state that they want to get people into, where we just accept whatever their pushed reality is that they force feed down our throat through the mainstream narratives.
I love how this sort of the focus seems to be on the whole gender bender thing. That's something I weirdly watched like a 3-hour documentary on the other day, and got really into the rabbit holes with all that. And it's funny because I like how Benny pointed out how it seems to be so aligned with this corporate agenda, and it really destroys the whole like sort of rebellious vibe that the whole kind of movement claims to embody. You know, they really kind of are in line with like the powers that be, and I'm not sure they realize it. And that's something that we really have to, I think, make apparent to people. That's my opinion, at least. What do you think, Benny?
Yeah, well, I think they've also, I mean, this term toxic masculinity is thrown around all the time, which is just masculinity. So they've demonized men. So basically anything a man has to say is now in danger of being toxic and offensive to someone. And if you've demasculated the population, then you've demasculated the part of the population that would stand up against the authority. That's and right. Stand up for that uprising. So that if you have all women thinking that men are toxic, that makes us also weak, that we won't be able to, we won't have the balls to stand up to this tyranny.
I couldn't agree more, man. And it's funny. I remember growing up in life, like being pushed away from, sort of natural behaviors that I learned later in life was just masculine energy. Do you know what I mean? Like expressing your opinion, even if nobody asked for it. You know what I mean? So many people so many people think that that's like a super negative thing. And in certain contexts, you don't want to be a jerk or anything, but like just in general, the outward expansive energy of masculinity is demonized. Like it's got a whole new moniker on it. And you're right, it is to sort of quell, it was the men of the world who got up and, I mean, still to this day, fighting the wars and stuff. I mean, that's kind of how it goes. And like, if you can take that out of the army of the humans and the people who are like, I guess like the plebeians is sort of like the term people are referring to the common man as now. If you take that masculine element out of it, it makes them that much easier to subdue.
The dark occult always seeks to invert everything. It seeks to invert because it can't create. It can only really take what's there and twist and distort. So inversion of everything is part of the agenda. So you're taking the sacred feminine and turning it into the unholy feminine. So you're taking what would be a feminine nurturing nature that is there to guide and support and uplift and direct. And then you're turning that into something that is controlling, wanting power, wanting to be more like a man instead of being feminine in and of itself, in its own quality. And then also wanting control and power. And then you're doing the same thing with the sacred masculine, which is a protectorate force, something that is there to provide defense when something is attacked and harmed, when someone is attacked and harmed without right, and strength, and something that is expansive, as you said, Carmen, and continuously puts energy out there. That's the will. That's the force of the will. And they want to take that and they want to pervert that and turn that into the unholy masculine, or the control freak mentality that we see in police, military, politicians, any aspect of the state. This is all the controllers. This is all the dark occult can do. They can only invert, distort, and pervert. They can never really create using true creative energy. They can only take what is there that nature has provided and given us and turn it into its polarized opposite, twisting and distorting it and perverting it into the opposite that nature intended it to be. Great points. I mean, I think that's definitely part of the agenda that they want to put out there. They want people confused. They want people divided amongst themselves, even internally divided, so that they don't even really understand, themselves. So it looks like we have Benny and Sonia back. Let me drop the connection.
Yeah, and as far as I know, and I may be completely off base with this, but I'm pretty sure someone like, what is his name? Rod Sterling? Is that his name?
Rod Sterling.
Sterling, sorry. He had full creative control over the Twilight Zone. And I feel like that rarely happens these days. rarely does someone have full creative control over the product that's being produced. In order to produce something, you have to acquiesce to whatever the producers want. I mean, that was one of the issues. We were making this pilot a few years ago. I mean, we got financially backed by someone who was a producer in Hollywood and really liked what we were doing, and basically he saw dollar signs. He's like, nobody else is doing what you guys are doing. Now, when we were trying to pitch it to various distributors, like we went and met FX and AMC and what was the other one? Epix and Comedy Central, MTV, and a bunch of other ones, some internet-only ones. And while everybody liked it, nobody knew what to do with it. And it was actually kind of a relief in the end, because I was nervous that if the show did get picked up, that we wouldn't be able to say what we wanted to say anymore. Because so much of what we say is absolutely contradictory to what Hollywood is putting out there. And especially now, I mean, I feel like we couldn't even pitch that show now. 3 or 4 years ago we could, because that was like when Mr. Robot was out and conspiracy culture was actually kind of like in, and now it's not. It's so far out. It's considered alt-right, white supremacist, etc. So I don't even think we would have stood a chance to get those meetings at this point. But we definitely would have been compromised had we got it produced, to a certain extent anyway. I mean, we'd have to run every idea by someone, and I can't imagine my ideas making it through a bunch of producers' approval. So,
and the tide might have turned during the Red Scare, this big like communist infiltration in Hollywood that was thrown out as a total hoax. Wasn't a hoax, that there were actually people with an agenda trying to get into the narratives that were being told on television. That might have been the turning point.
But a physical option. And again, I've been trying to bring the truth to the table regarding what's taking place in our world and in our communities for the last 12 years, for the very reason that I want to see that eventuality averted. I see it inexorably leading to that space of conflict and bloodshed, quite frankly. And that's not fear-mongering. That's not talking trash. That is looking at historical patterns honestly and openly and realizing what they are going to lead to socially. And if people think that that can't happen, they're extraordinarily naive. They're seeing the world through rose-colored glasses and don't understand the powder keg that America could potentially become and already really is becoming. The censorship thing is going to lead to that. And people will say, oh, it's all controlled. It's a dialectic. Yes. Again, I've said many times in the past, I understand that they're trying to push things toward that direction. But that doesn't mean that you can let the manipulated walk all over you. See, only one side of a dialectical conflict needs to buy the lie, the illusion, for the conflict to kick off and start to become successful. Because it's like, what are you going to just say? Oh, well, it's all mind-controlled people. I'm just going to let them take my rights and walk all over me because they bought into an illusion. Well, no. The people who don't want their rights taken and want their sovereignty maintained and protected are going to say, I know that you guys are under mind control. I know that you're totally manipulated and brainwashed, but we can't allow you to do what you're doing. That doesn't mean that just because you, like a naive child, have let yourself in your weakened condition, in your spiritually and psychologically weakened condition, allowed yourself to be taken over, okay, and be cut off from true spirituality and any source of truth whatsoever. That doesn't mean we're going to let you, as infantile spiritual children, brainwashed children, take our rights as truly awakened and spiritually understanding individuals. You're not going to take our rights away just because we understand you've been polarized into a dialectic thought process. It's so that's the whole idea, is that we have to stop it, nip it in the bud, and stop that manipulation from happening up front. We haven't done our job in that regard, and that's why we need a doubling down of our effort to try to really reach these people at some level to wake them up out of this trance. Otherwise, inexorably, especially here in America, as this censorship agenda gets pushed more and more and freedom of speech gets taken away, you're not going to see America back down in the ways that a lot of the rest of the countries of the world have backed down, because a culture of self-defense is way too strong in America for that to happen. Now, you may not see it on the scale that some of us would like to see it, but I'm telling you, it's going to be on a scale that is going to, if we allow it to go that far, is going to be at an unimaginable level of suffering, violence, and bloodshed. And that's what we're all really trying to avoid here. This is what on Earth is Happening has all been about, to try to bring this information about what's taking place politically behind the scenes and occultically behind the scenes, you know, regarding mind control. We're trying to bring that forward to avert that eventuality. This is what's going to drive further political polarization, and it's going to drive what I see as an inexorable civil war if we're not careful. And again, I've been trying to avert this, and I think people need to be honest with themselves that this isn't going to be, there's too much of a culture of self-defense and a culture of weaponry here in America that the American public at some point it's going to explode like a powder keg as far as I'm concerned. I see it bubbling beneath the surface. It may not be overt, especially in urban environments, but you can see in other places the anger that's bubbling beneath the surface. And if that powder keg goes off here in America, there's not going to be any putting the lid back on that can or stuffing the genie back in that bottle. When it goes off, the bomb will not be unexploded. It will affect everybody.
Night.